Folks, welcome to a special edition of So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. This is your pal Ryan, and this is, I guess, a Sunday episode. I've been releasing so many episodes. I released a two-part Real Housewives of Orange County recap this morning. We had a tech screw up on Friday night, so I had to release it this morning. So if you want to hear me lose my mind about Real Housewives of Orange County's finale, go over, check that out. We released so many shows this week, and I think that really speaks to I talked about this in the Orange County episode is that when I get nervous or when I don't want to be inside my own head, I speak to you guys and to my therapist and to my girlfriend and to some friends, but mainly you guys. You guys are the friends that I come back to day in, day out. And when I get really nervous, I talk to you more and more. And I know you might be like, Ryan, oh my God, stop it. We can't take it. It's too much. But listen, I'm nervous. We've got this daylight savings time. We got that'll happen today. But we also have this I don't know if you've heard about this 2024 election, right? And I know you're groaning as I say that, but let me speak about the 2024 election, and if that's not your cup of tea, oh my God, good news. I have 20 other episodes this week that you can turn to, or you can go to the Patreon and listen to a Vanderpump Rules recap. But let me just speak about this. And we also have an amazing guest today that I was so fortunate to talk to on Friday night. His name's John Lovett, and he's the host of Pod Saves America and Love It or Leave It. And he's the co-founder of just one of the best podcasting outlets out there, Crooked Media. And he also started Vote Saves America. Vote Save America, I'm sorry, which is a one-stop shop for all the resources people need to get informed, get involved, get out and vote. And you're saying, Ryan, we're less than 3 days away. What can I even do now for the person that I'm voting for? Well, go to this website and you can phone bank. You can go door to door. There are 7 swing states in contention right now. If you're in one of those swing states, you can be very helpful. And even as John says in this interview, you can call a couple of your friends. You can have those uncomfortable, awkward conversations with your family. I mean, get a jump start on Thanksgiving today. So he even said, call people that you've ghosted or people that have ghosted you in the past and say, hey, sorry about that. Who you voting for? So there are a lot of things that we can do. My dad always says, and you might have heard my dad, Bill Bailey, say this on this podcast time and time again when we've had political conversations. My dad fought in Vietnam, right? He has done a lot of things in his life. And he would always tell me, and he's told you guys on the podcast, back in the day, no matter what your political affiliation was, we would, have kind of civil discourse, and it would be, I don't agree with your opinion, but I respect that you have an opinion. And nowadays, I think we all can agree on this, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, is that I hear what you're saying and fuck you, right? That's kind of the vibe. And I don't love that vibe. I don't love that vibe at all. It's not what I'm about. Listen, I've told you from the very beginning of this podcast, the only people I truly love to make fun of is reality stars. And since we don't have any reality stars running in this, you know what? Never mind. Scratch that. But you know what I'm saying? And I want to assure you before we get to this interview is that I do listen and read a lot of stuff, not just reality TV stuff. I listened to Donald Trump on Joe Rogan. I've listened to Donald Trump on Theo Vaughn. And I do want to say, man, I would love to kick it with Donald Trump at some point, even though I'm very much against his worldview and a lot of the things that he stands for. And I know probably even those of you listening, he speaks to a great deal of you. And I do truly, truly try to understand what that is. But I also have to tell you, and you might not care, is that is not what I stand for. Those are not my beliefs. And that's kind of what the best thing about America is that every 4 years we get to do this, right? And no matter who wins on Tuesday or however long it's going to take, is that we are still Americans, right? That we are still together, that we try to be together, that we try to be good neighbors. that we try to be these good people that can put down our phones sometimes and get off social media and just try to be good people to each other. Or at least that's kind of the idealized version in my head. Um, I was watching Saturday Night Live tonight, and I gotta tell you, it was a really great episode, and I'm not even talking about the political stuff on it. John Mulaney, there was a sketch he wrote that had, like, all these musical theater elements that were amazing. Chapel Roan was so I mean, knocked it out of the park. It was so you sometimes forget that Saturday Night Live can be really, really funny when the right elements are all put together, and I keep thinking about that in terms of the political process too, about the right elements coming together. And it's kind of this real weird math equation, and I'm not good at math, that you try to put together in your head of what can move this country forward and how can we get from this hateful rhetoric and try to realize that we have so much in common, much more than we do our differences, right? And I don't believe that there is any perfect candidate out there. I believe that the world is too troubled for a perfect candidate. So you have to look at the issues, right? And I'm trying not to mansplain because you guys probably know I'm just trying to talk out my thoughts. But you do have to look at those issues where you stand on reproductive rights, right? Where you stand on the economy, where you stand on climate change, where you stand on immigration. There are so many things that you have to bear in mind. And I was watching this other thing tonight that kind of blew me away. There's a Martha Stewart documentary on Netflix right now called Martha, great title, directed by RJ Cutler, who's an amazing documentarian. And it's amazing what this woman has done in her life. Martha Stewart, came from a very poor family, had a very cold, hard dad who she loved dearly. Her mom, they were trying to make ends meet, and she would pay attention to everything her mom did in the kitchen. And she wanted a bigger life, right? And she went to Barnard on a scholarship, a very fancy school, met a man, fell in love, went to Europe for the first time. I mean, it's full of these like wild facts. And I really want you to watch the documentary. I'll probably talk about it on the pop culture roundup on Monday because there were so many details where I was like, Martha, you crazy. Um, and she then she became a stockbroker. She went on the stock market and was like very, very successful. And for a woman in her time, she was like one of the first women on Wall Street. They didn't have women's bathrooms at the stock exchange when Martha Stewart was there. Isn't that shocking? There was a time where there wasn't even a woman's bathroom in the stock exchange. And she conquered that. And then she got out of that business and found like the perfect home to renovate and to start kind of creating a life and a lifestyle. And she, planted all of these gardens and rebuilt this house and started doing catering. And her catering had like this vision to it and all of this just amazingness. And she would be throwing these parties and kind of became the toast of the town with the parties that she was catering and then throwing. And then she was able to create her first book, which then led to her first magazine, Martha Stewart Living. And of course, there was an eventual prison, a quick 5-month stint in prison. But even the telling of that story was fascinating. She was she was the first woman billionaire in the United States, if that documentary is correct, because she went public as Martha Stewart, and which is wild because he was all around Martha Stewart. And they said, well, what if you die, Martha? I mean, you're trading this on the stock exchange. What if you die? You are this company. And she didn't die, but she did go to prison and it really hurt the company. And then it focused on after that, how it kind of changed her. But then she found a younger audience. She started doing these Comedy Central roads. I mean, Martha Stewart's story, but it's really fascinating. It is such a fascinating story. And it's one of those stories that I'm drawn to. And I was really thinking about this because I think why I do this is we've heard so many men stories, right? And also like me talking to you right now, a white straight dude talking to you. How many times have we heard this? And I think that's probably why I'm so drawn to women's stories They're kind of more inspiring to me personally than men's stories, because you realize how much harder it is for women out there, or how hard it has been for women out there. And we don't want to go backwards. We want to keep pushing forwards. And I think there has been a series of the people that meant most to me in my life have all been women. Of course, I've got to start off with Becky Bailey, one of the most amazing, if not the most amazing woman that I've ever known, my mom. Hard worker, smart, um, didn't take no for an answer, pushed forward, got more done in a day than I could get done in a year. I work with amazing women, Maritza and Sandra, who help me with all of this, or who try to protect me with all of this. I get to work at a company like Betches, founded by, Sammy Sage, one of the founders, who I really respect and admire. She actually wrote a book, co-authored a book called Democracy in Retrograde, which actually is nonpartisan. I've read that book twice now, and I recommend anybody interested in the political process. It's a great primer. And I'm also talking to everybody out there to look forward, to look ahead, because it's not over Tuesday. We got to look at 2028. We got to look at the midterms. Unfortunately, we have to deal with politics for the rest of our lives. We are going to get annoying text messages and emails for the rest of our lives, right? Isn't that wild? And some of us, we're just trying to live our lives. But you do have to pay attention. And I was watching that Martha Stewart thing, and it was just reminding me of how many amazing women that I have been surrounded by, or that I have looked up to and admired. And I think that's one of the reasons that through this last 105 days that Kamala Harris has had to run, I've really appreciated her. I've also read all of her policies, which, yes, there are policies out there. If you do want to read them, they're there. I mean, there's so much misinformation that goes back and forth, right? But they're there. Um, I think she's handled this campaign very deftly for the time she has had. And for me personally, I'd like a woman in charge. I would. I would. I think it's time. And I realize, saying all of this, you know, I get nervous talking about this, because I understand when somebody that has a silly little podcast about pop culture and reality, obviously the easiest thing for some of you guys to do is to get angry and to send nasty comments or whatever. And I'm prepared for that. And at the end of the day, we're silly. I try to add something, try to add a little humor, a little silliness, make fun of myself as much as possible, as well as pop culture and these reality shows. But I think this is such an important time that I wanted to throw my measly 2 cents in there, and also say, listen, if you want to talk about anything, I'm here to talk about that with you. But there are still things to be done. You can phone bank, you can canvas, you can have those uncomfortable conversations or text messages leading up. I have already voted. I've already proudly voted. And I think that's a really amazing process to be a part of. And it's also scary. We do live in scary times, but also I prefer not to think of everything as hellfire and brimstone. I do like to think of the world as not a completely broken place. You can feel broken sometimes, but also realize there is so much good out there. And each and every one of you, even including stupid me, we got a lot of good in us. And we just have to be reminded of that sometimes. I've had the pleasure of having John Quinones and Sarah Haynes on that "What Would You Do?" that ABC hidden camera show, and Sarah Haynes, also one of the co-hosts of The View. And I was talking to Sarah this week, and I asked her about hope. Do you still have hope? And she said, I have a great deal of hope. And shows like "What Would You Do?" kind of shows that sometimes you just need to be reminded. Our natural inclination isn't to do the right thing sometimes, but sometimes if you see somebody do the right thing, it reminds you of, like, oh, that's the right thing. I can do the right thing. And I don't want to, this isn't about hatred for Donald Trump. This isn't about hatred of Republicans. This isn't about hatred at all. I just wanted to share this interview of somebody that I've always wanted to talk to. I've been an admirer of Mr. Lovett's for a very long time. I mean, this was a speechwriter that has written speeches for Hillary Clinton, for Barack Obama. I mean, even just the craft of speech writing, I geek out on. He's also wildly funny. And yes, I do have to remind everybody, he was the first person voted off of Survivor this season. So, of course, we have a couple of reality show questions. Now, I only got to have 30 minutes with him, which was, they gave me even more time than initially scheduled because this dude is out there pounding the pavement. In fact, he is going to Arizona and Las Vegas. He's in Las Vegas right now in these swing states doing what he can to try to get out the vote, right? And Arizona, I grew up in Arizona. Grew up in Kansas, and then we moved to Arizona when I was in high school. And I just got to visit Arizona again a couple of weeks ago. And Arizona, man, it's going to be close. It's going to be close. And regardless of what happens on Tuesday, is that right after it is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we keep going. We keep going. We try to put as much positivity out there. And of course, we're all going to be sad. We're all going to freak out. I know there's going to be people on both sides, obviously, that will be sad. But right now, I really encourage people to go out there and vote if you haven't. If there are any undecided voters out there, let me know what you need for me to help you. I can send you the policies. I can try to talk you through it or walk you through it, or I can just even talk to you about Jax Taylor for a bit. But I want to try to help as much as possible. And I this year will be voting for Kamala Harris, and that's it. And as Ringo Starr says, or as Howard Stern always plays Ringo Starr's drop from the Beatles on his show, peace and love, peace and love. And as my dad Bill Bailey always says, no hate, no hate. There's no hate here. There's a lot of love, and this is coming from a lot of love. And also, like I said, if this is not your thing, if you're already a decided voter, go listen to my OC recap. Go listen to my Salt Lake City recap. You don't have to don't get yourself all upset. I totally get it. I understand. But I try not to steer you guys wrong. And I just wanted to kind of get some of my nerves out and also be able to share this great conversation I had with Mr. Lovett. So, also, this is off topic, but I got to podcast with my friend and coworker, Maritza Lopez. She has a podcast called Love is Latino about Love is Blind Mexico, which has a season on Netflix. And we talked about this current season of Love is Blind. They just had their reunion release this past week. And we did like an hour and a half podcast that I think is going to be out today on Sunday. So that we laughed a lot on that, and not really any politics on that at all. So go over there and support Maritza. We had a really great conversation about Love is Blind. And I thought it was fantastic. And now I'm going to talk about Puerto Rico. No. Here he is, the one, the only, Mr. John Lovett. Bye, guys. I'll talk to you on Monday for the Pop Culture Roundup. Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. I love our next guest so much. I've been listening to Pod Saves America and his pod, Love It or Leave It Forever. His company, Crooked Media, releases some of the best pods ever. And I haven't even mentioned this man was one of Obama's speech writers. Of course, being a pop culture expert, I would love to spend our time talking about how he was released first on Survivor this season and how Andy truly threw him under the bus. But we are mere days away from the 2024 election. So we have more important things to discuss. Guys, we have John Lovett here today. John, are you still feeling hopeful but broken?
Hopeful but broken. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. That's the right place to be. Thanks for having me. I like saying first release, like I was let go. Like there was a yes, I was the first boot, and that was always the funniest thing that could have happened, and that is what happened. But I feel, here's what I'll say. I went into that vote I was not broken, and I was not hopeful. I went into that vote feeling like the odds were stacked against me. Right now, we have a lot against us heading into this election on Tuesday, but I remain hopeful. We could win and we can lose. But if we do everything we're supposed to do over the next 3 days, then we can win.
Yeah, I was listening to Bernie Sanders and your interview with AOC and how it really is this close. And I was just wondering, as bystanders out here, what can we do in these last couple of days to get out the vote?
So there is everybody listening. You are really needed right now. Wherever you are really needed right now. First of all, you can get to any of the 7 swing states to knock on doors. That would be the most helpful thing anyone can do. But if you can't, you can make phone calls from home. You can send texts from home. You can sign up to Cure Ballots. That's to be available to track down voters who actually tried to vote, but maybe they missed their signature, and you can go find those voters and make sure you get those voters to count. And wherever you are in America, even if you can't get to a swing state, if you're in New York, if you're in LA, if you're really anywhere, you are within an hour or two of a house race that is probably razor thin, in which if you showed up on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, you could help turn out the vote. That will make the difference. There are a lot of people in this country who are undecided, either between Kamala and Trump or between voting or not voting. And by the way, one last thing, and this is just as important. In your phone contacts, you have 3 friends or colleagues or ex-lovers. They will hear, if they can hear from you and you say, hey, sorry, I ghosted you after we broke up. Weird time to talk to you, but I just need to make sure you voted. That kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, completely. And that's an important thing about the House as well, because if we can win the House, Mike Johnson won't be there anymore. So this November surprise that is being hinted at and Trump is talking about as an MSG rally, we could actually, kind of sway that as well and put ourselves in a really good position. So there is, you guys, a lot of reason to be hopeful. And in these last couple of days, too, I was wondering, do you recommend staying off of social media? Because I feel like the Republicans kind of confuse and obfuscate, like things like that. Do you recommend staying away from all like kind of social media at this point?
I think everybody should do whatever they need to do to stay sane and engaged in this next couple of days. If you want, because by the way, we also post, tell people that you voted. Post, tell people why you care so much about this election. We need that too. We need people out there telling their friends, their neighbors, their networks why they care so much, right? And so I don't want to cede that territory to people that are trying to make us feel bad or spreading misinformation. But at the same time, I am worried about the fact that we are heading into an election in which, look, the Trump campaign, the Republican operation, they have a job. Their job is to confuse and obfuscate the choice. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it about bullshit, trying to make it about garbage trucks and nonsense. Democrats, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, all these Senate candidates, all of you listening that care about this, our job is just to get the truth out there, because we know that when people understand the stakes of this election, they break our way. And so over the next 3 to 4 days, it's about getting that information in front of people. You can do that online, but you can just as do it just as easily offline. But no, if what you're doing all day is scrolling, hoping that the next tweet or the next post or the next TikTok is the one that gives you the assurance and certainty that allows you to sleep better at night, that post will not come. It does not exist.
And I truly think a lot of the people still don't really have the knowledge of like the issues in this campaign, and Donald Trump's promising things of no tax on tips and I'm just going to give you free money. But I want to remind people, the economy is going strong right now, right? Like we want a strong economy. And I think it's proven that with Trump's plan, that is going to really go away. We also have immigration. We have women's reproductive rights, climate, and the future of our civil rights. Are these all the issues that we need to be reminding those friends on those phone calls with ex-lovers?
Yes. So here's what I would say. I think there's a lot of people that are upset that costs have gone up in the aftermath of the pandemic. They remember that costs were lower under Trump. They also say, well, hold on a second. If Trump is so dangerous, he was already president. All those terrible things didn't happen. And there's a response that you should have for that. One, some bad things really did happen. The right to abortion really did go away. But 2, all the people around Trump that stopped him the first time are gone. Trump is more unstable. He is more unhinged. And he is now only surrounded by yes men and sycophants who will go along with mass deportations, which they wouldn't do the last time, who will go along with dispatching the military against people that he doesn't like, against protesters, which they wouldn't go along with the last time. And not only that, Donald Trump is telling us what he's going to do in a second term. He is going to do tariffs. Corporations this week have told people that if Donald Trump becomes president, they're going to raise prices, because all tariffs are a national sales tax. So even on the issue where if you ask people, they think Trump had a better record on. That's what people say when pollsters say that he was better on inflation. Even on that issue, he is promising a worse outcome. He is promising higher prices in the future. Only Kamala has a plan to bring costs down, whether it's for prescription drugs, cost of daily necessities, housing, what have you. So that's the main thing. But on abortion access, on reproductive freedom, in the last couple of days, these Republicans have started to let the mask slip. Donald Trump, in a speech, I believe just last night, said that he's going to put RFK Jr. in charge of women's health. This is a crackpot environmental lawyer who believes in conspiracy theories and anti-science nonsense that could put a lot of people's lives in danger. They're high on their own supply, right? Like they are buying their own bullshit about believing that they're ahead based on no information whatsoever. And as a result, they're getting cocky and they're letting the mask slip and they're telling us what they're going to do. And if enough people in America come to understand what Donald Trump is going to do, if they just understood what he would do versus what Kamala will do, Kamala Harris will be the next president. But that's our job. That's not her job anymore. Yeah. It's our job.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to remind people that Kamala's only run a campaign that's a little over 100 days. Donald Trump's been running a campaign for the last 4 years, or you could say his entire life. And I would just, as somebody that has focused on campaigns for so long, how do you think this last 100 days has gone for her? Because I feel like there's been high highs and it kind of goes up and down and up and down. And we're in this final week. She gave a beautiful speech this week in front of the Capitol. How do you feel she has run this 100-day campaign?
Kamala Harris has done basically the impossible. I mean, she is all around the world. There are people that are pretty pissed and angry at incumbents. We are traumatized from the pandemic. People are cynical and angry about politics. She started out with negative approvals because people don't really understand what the vice president does, and people were pretty down on Joe Biden. In such a short span of time, she has stood up and taken over and stood up an incredibly effective campaign. She has delivered a message. She has fought to get the word out to enough people that she has kind of battled Trump on some of his strongest and her weakest issues. When the question around whether Joe Biden should step aside was being asked, people thought, well, will it be Kamala? Will it be somebody else? Also, by the way, like it's risky to not have your nominee switch so close to an election, in part because in primaries, what happens? You test people. They go through a trial by primary, and you put them on their feet and they give speeches and they do interviews. Kamala Harris all of a sudden has thrust on her shoulders an incredible amount of pressure, an incredible responsibility, and she rose to it. She exceeded, I would say, the expectation of even her biggest and most ardent fans. And like at this point, I sincerely believe this, that like, is any campaign perfect? No. But if you need a perfect campaign to win every time, that tells you something deeper is broken. But she's run an extraordinary campaign. And at this point, it is no longer up to Kamala Harris. She's doing everything she is supposed to do. It is up to us. It is up to what we in the country do and what we decide over the next 100 hours.
Which is the power of the people. That's exactly what it is. So that is amazing. I was thinking, because I don't want to remind people again that you were the first to go on Survivor, but that's a reality show. Sure. And Donald Trump kind of, got his message out on The Apprentice. And I just thought how interesting that these days, how powerful TV is and how powerful reality is. Does that blow you away, or does that make a lot of sense to you? And would you recommend future candidates just, hey, do a reality show right now for the 28 elections?
I don't know that I would go that far. Look, I think sometimes there are a lot of people that kind of either dismiss reality television with a broad brush, or that they don't watch it, or they kind of have some preconceived notions about it and they dismiss the entire genre. And like, reality TV is a genre, and I think that there are great versions of it, and there are versions of it that are not for me. But I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to go on Survivor is because Survivor really did change everything. It introduced all of us to a kind of reality TV that really took off. And I think there is something kind of interesting and poignant about the fact that at root Survivor is a social experiment in democracy, and reality TV itself is in some way a kind of democratic medium in that uh, it is ostensibly about not, it brings people from all walks of life. Yes, there are shows that are about the rich and the famous, but not all of them. A lot of them are just ordinary people competing against one another or living together, or what the case might be. And there's something kind of democratic about that I really liked and wanted to be a part of. Uh, I, do I think candidates should go on reality TV? I would say that that's a case by case basis.
Yeah. No, I find it very interesting that that's kind of where his myth kind of one of his big myths started. But also podcasting. I was just reading this article this week that podcasting is kind of the new battleground state. And you guys have been doing this forever and doing it at such a level. But now it's like the podcasting wars. We got Trump on Rogan, Vance on Rogan. We have Kamala on Call Her Daddy. I mean, Stern's not a podcast, but she went on Stern. I mean, is it wild for you to see that like the true power of podcasting kind of is like, mainstream media in a way now?
It has become so much more difficult to reach big audiences. That's just the end of the monoculture. We see that in entertainment. We see that in politics. And so it used to be you can do a big interview and count on reaching a big chunk of the electorate. That is just not the case anymore. There are very few moments where you can reach a lot of people. A State of the Union is one. A debate is another. But so now instead of doing big interviews to reach the TV audience or the radio audience, you have to do a bunch of different interviews with a bunch of different outlets to reach people where they get their information from. Podcasts are a big part of that, but you saw Bernie did a Twitch stream. AOC and Tim Walz did a Twitch stream together. Kamala went on Howard Stern. She also did Charlemagne, right? So there are just these big communities that you have to go out and reach. And I do think that it was smart of Trump and JD Vance to go on Rogan. I think that's been one smart decision they made, to put Trump in front of Theo Von and some of these other places where they know he would get a friendly reception and be able to kind of just shoot the shit without some of the more difficult questions he would get from mainstream outlets. I think what Kamala has done is what you would want to see from a person running to be the leader of the free world and in charge of the healthcare and the nukes, which is a mix of the podcasts and more kind of culturally relevant figures, but also sitting down with everybody from Bret Baier to 60 Minutes and a bunch of other more hard-hitting kind of mainstream journalists. That's kind of what you'd want to see. I would like to have it would be nice to have. We've had Tim Walz on Pod Save America a couple times. We haven't had Kamala Harris on in a while. It would be nice if she. I want her to win, and that's really all I care about. But then, if she wins, when she wins, hey, she could stop by.
I mean, she's got to. I feel like she has to. You guys have been so. I mean, anyway. I like to keep these things positive because I feel like there's so much darkness on the other side that really tries to scare us. And I think positivity is a huge part of this. And I also want to point out to people that you launched Vote Saves America, which I'm going to put all the information in the show notes. And this is to help educate people. I mean, to get out the vote. But we're already looking ahead, too, because this is going to keep going. And I was wondering if you're noticing what those voting trends are, especially with younger people. Are they breaking Kamala's way? Are they more Trump? Because, you got the Bitcoin bros and things like that. What are you noticing out there?
So Dan Pfeiffer, who's one of the co-hosts of Pod Save America, he interviewed David Binder, who's a pollster for the Kamala Harris campaign. And he made a point that stuck with me. And the point was, you see a lot on the internet about the techno bros and the crypto bros and anti-trans stuff and, the manosphere and all this. But that when you actually kind of ask young people what they care about, and in particular ask young men what they care about, their interests and views are not so different, right? They care about a lot of the same issues. They care about the cost of goods. They care about healthcare. They care about finding good jobs, right? Like if you ask actual young men what they care about, they have a similar set of concerns as most people. All that's a way of saying, I do think Democrats have to make sure we're not ceding any territory to Donald Trump and conservatives. And I do think we need an answer to the kind of performative masculinity we see on the right, Republican media, some of it, especially the media aimed at younger guys, they've pulled quite a trick, right? And the trick is this: they perform a kind of rebellion. They perform a kind of rebellious, anti-establishment role, right? Like, we're going to stick it to the man. We're fighting the woke culture, fighting the cancel culture, punk rock. But then what do they actually advocate for? They advocate for some of the oldest traditional ways of being, the patriarchal, old-fashioned institutions and cultures and mores. And so, like, that's the trick they're trying to pull. They kind of do this sort of like, we're the cool guys now, they're the squares. But then they tell people then they kind of try to tell people how to live. And I think we need to make sure that we don't cede that ground, that we are the place. We say to people, come as you are. We say to people, that we welcome everybody, and that nobody isn't welcome. That if we want to be a party people would join, it has to be a party people would want to attend. And we have to not lose sight of that. And I think sometimes we do.
What is the most outrageous campaign promise you've heard this election cycle?
I will tell you, this isn't a promise. I will say this is the most brazen lie. And this is an incredible category, right? To say, what is the most brazen lie Donald Trump has told? This is a prolific, extraordinary liar. But after Mike Johnson made this comment about how they're going to kind of take a blowtorch to regulations, they're going to undo Obamacare and come after healthcare, Donald Trump realizes this is unpopular. And he actually says, I don't want to get rid of Obamacare. I never said that. He said it at every rally in 2016 over and over again. When he became president, he had such a hard-on for getting rid of Obamacare that he did a fake bill signing when repeal passed the House. The only reason it wasn't repealed fully is because John McCain gave a thumbs down and stopped it. Donald Trump wanted it gone. His Justice Department was part of a lawsuit to overturn Obamacare, and his Health and Human Services tried to sabotage Obamacare from the inside. He has been against Obamacare for a decade, never came up with a plan to replace it, but he's been against it the whole time. And that, to me, is the most brazen lie, which I suppose is also a brazen promise, which is to claim that he'll protect Obamacare when his whole entire life's mission has been to obliterate anything Obama touched because Obama made him feel bad.
Yeah. I listened to two beautiful speeches this week, one from Michelle Obama and one from Kamala Harris. And you have a speechwriting background, and you've spoken about that many times in regards to Obama, who still, I mean, I just love to hear that man speak. Do you still get, or can you still get wrapped up in the emotion of a speech? Or is it really, you get emotional when you see how it lands on voters? Are you still able to put yourself in there? Or are you like kind of clinically putting that together in your head of, this is what I would have done?
I'm a wreck. My emotions are right here at the surface. I'll cry right now. That'd
be great for the pod, John. That'd be great.
I don't understand how anybody can be paying close attention to what's happening in politics right now and not have their emotions right by the surface. The stakes are very high. The fact that this election is so close is so dispiriting. But it also means we have agency, and that combination, that feeling of sadness, but also hope, I think is what it means to be paying attention to politics right now. Watching Michelle Obama, I was genuinely moved. I teared up, and it was a beautiful speech. And it was a beautiful speech in part because I think it was a reminder to me what the job of speechwriting is. And because there are truths that are not particularly helpful politically. And there are things you can say politically that are not particularly true. And there are true things that are helpful politically, but that don't resonate and don't feel emotionally important. But the idea that you could do all three, and that the job of that speech, or the job of any great campaign speech, is to, as honestly, as truthfully to your own experience, convey the stakes of an election in a way that is persuasive. And I really think that speech, to me, if you just put that in front of it, was actually, I would say sincerely, one of the reasons I felt hopeful this week, because I saw Trump on Joe Rogan and I thought, God, he did kind of a good job on Joe Rogan, to be honest. Yeah, he rambled and
Yeah.
bloviated and made stuff up, fine. But he has enough. He's affable, right? He's charming. He isn't just a menace, right? He has these qualities that have allowed him to get ahead in life and in politics. But then I saw Michelle Obama speak, and I thought, you know what? Put these two things up side by side for people. Because in one, you have a kind of carefree, careless, affable figure bullshitting his way through life. And then on the other, you have this heartfelt, emotionally resonant case that just says, if you care about me, if you love me, if you love the women in your life, if you care about the people in your life, in this moment, they need you. They need you to vote with them. And if you really do, if your identity as a woman or a man is one in which you support the people you love, this vote is how you show support for the people you love, even if you're upset, even if you're mad about inflation, even if you hate politics, even if you think Joe Biden is full of shit, even if you don't think Kamala Harris is the greatest figure in history, even if you have concerns, even if you're cynical, if you love your wife, your sister, your mother, your daughter, if you love the people who are telling you how important this is to them, listen to them. That's it. All you have to do is listen.
And to your point, I talk to a lot of reality stars on this show, and like the thing is, I like talking to them, but I would never want them to be president. And I mean, but true, like I'm sure I would have a really fun conversation with Donald Trump. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think he speaks to? Because we see, so much of the nation. What do you do? You think it's fear? Do you think it's like, oh, this is a guy I could shoot the shit with? What is it?
It's so hard to have perspective on that right now, because I am so filled with white hot rage. But when I step back, I do think, to your point earlier, he became well known to the country in this role as a performing being a businessman. He does retain a lot of goodwill around the economy. People don't like him personally. They think he's not a good guy. They think he's an asshole. They think he's a liar. But they think maybe because they've become so cynical about politics, they've seen politics disappoint them for so long, that maybe that's what we need. Maybe they're all liars. They're all full of shit. They're all making promises they can't keep. They all make stuff up. And so if that's the case, why don't we put a businessman in there? And so Donald Trump both feeds on and perpetuates that cynicism. After the storms, he starts making things up about Joe Biden only helping Democrats and not wanting to help Republican areas. And that catches fire. Why? Because people are primed to believe that that's how politics works. But what's ironic is that's the kind of politics Donald Trump practices. It's a kind of politics people actually hate. And so it gains traction because people already believe things are as bad as Donald Trump would make it.
Yep.
And that to me is like the core fraud at the center of all of this, that we can reject that Donald Trump tells us things are as bad as I say it is, and you can't expect better than what I offer. But that isn't true. That isn't true. That's a lie. And it's our job to prove it by defeating him and showing him what politics can be. That's our job. And we all have to do it. And then we can go to sleep knowing we did everything we could. I am 10 out of 10 ready to fucking go. Well,
dude, you fired me up. I already voted. I'm going to do my first duty right now. I hear you haven't voted, John. I want you to vote.
Gotta fill out my ballot.
What about
I gotta fill it out. Hey, I got till Tuesday.
No. We can't wait, John. We can't wait. We got to do it now.
You know what? So I'm going to fill it out right after we end this.
Yes. I recommend Kamala Waltz. That's who I'm going for. And I know it's a very private decision for you.
Yeah, that's right.
But I just think if you listen to this conversation we had today, you might think a little differently. I have a couple more minutes with you. Okay, so I know this really isn't about you, but I was just thinking about what you've represented in my life personally over this last couple of years and helped educate me and learn a little bit more about a political system. Is that a lot of pressure on you? And especially now you are like talking to show after show. And I was just wondering, I mean, what's your favorite antacid and how are you doing this? Like this weekend, what are you going to be doing? What is John Lovett going to be doing?
So I'm throwing back Tums, and I'm heading to. We're going to Arizona and we're going to Nevada. We'll be knocking on doors in Arizona on Saturday, and then we'll be going to Nevada to Vegas
Because
to
those are
knock on
battleground
doors.
states,
Those are
right?
battleground great.
Yeah.
Those are battleground states. They're presidential battlegrounds. There's also 2 Senate races in that state. And so we'll be there. But last weekend, we were in a couple districts around LA where there are these house races that could make all the difference. So wherever you are, there's a place where you can go. If you go to votesaveamerica.com, you can put in your zip code and you can find places that need your help. They need people to go knock on doors. If you do 50 doors, if you do 100 doors this weekend, you'll be part of making sure we hit all the doors we need to hit to make sure we touch all the people we need to touch so that we win the election. So please, 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 now is the time. Go to votesaveamerica.com. Abortion is at stake. The climate is at stake. Whether or not we have free and fair elections is at stake. There is so much on the line for people. The healthcare system is at stake. I know it feels overwhelming. I know right now
It does, yeah.
It's so anxiety provoking because how could it be this close? How could we live in a country where someone this manifestly
I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like sometimes I'm going crazy. Yeah.
But just know that is yes. Why is it like that? Let's talk about it on Wednesday. Right now, know that it means you're powerful because it's so close. It means you could make the difference. You and your friends could make the difference. You have power and agency in this moment. And if we use it, we will win. If you don't, we won't. It's that simple.
And also in terms of your release schedule, in terms of your own podcast, are you going to be recording in Arizona, in Las Vegas? Will we be able to keep kind of like track of what you're doing and getting out the vote on your end?
So if you follow us on Vote Save America on all the places you can follow us or Pod Save America or Crooked Media, you'll see us on the road. And then starting next week, basically we're going to be recording every day until we're on the other side of this thing. Could take a couple of days to count ballots. There's going to be a lot of shenanigans. There's going to be a lot of bullshit. We'll have What a Day, which is our daily news pod with Jane Coaston. That'll be covering it. Pod Save America will be providing deeper analysis every day. Strict Scrutiny, which is our legal pod, they're going to be keeping an eye on all the legal battles, and they'll be updating on their pod and on all the other pods at Crooked. So follow along. Listen, we will try our best to give you the information you need and not the information you don't at a time in which there's going to be a ton of confusion where there may be a lot of confusion and misinformation. So follow along. It's a tough time, but it's better together, I think.
Yes, I think it is too. 2 last things. You guys, you got my hopes up the other day on one of your podcasts saying like maybe Taylor Swift's going to come out. And I was thinking about the celebrity aspect of all of this and how Jennifer Lopez spoke the other night and talked about the Puerto Rico MSG comment. How important do you think celebrity culture is in any of this? And I guess it's similar to that podcasting question, but do you think that helps?
I think it can help. I think it's how you deploy it. I think you want, somebody, some of these like Bruce Springsteen, J-Lo, like these are people that get attention, get coverage, get people to pay attention to what you're doing. I think that's useful. I also think there are people that love them and maybe haven't heard what they were going to say. And that's a way to get the message to people. I think there's like a little bit of a risk of celebrities because these are kind of, in some cases, people that are pretty wealthy and maybe a little bit disconnected from the daily struggles. But that just means you have to make sure that you're not relying on celebrities or making your campaign about celebrities. But I think the way the Harris campaign has deployed people like Beyonce and others has been really great because they stand up there and say, I understand these stakes. It gets in front of more people. And again, this is about getting the stakes and the truth of this election in front of more people. And if we do that, we win.
And then finally, we also got to stop Andy on Survivor. I don't know if you've kept up, But can you believe that Andy has made it this far? I really thought that guy was the next to go, and now I don't know if you probably haven't been able to watch Survivor this week, but the guy's still in it, and he's really making moves. But at the same time, I just get nervous every time he's on screen. Do you think this guy could go all the way?
I'm going to be very careful about how I talk about Survivor, because I do not want anything I say to color any expectations about what's to come.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get anything out of me about what's to come or what has happened since I left. But man, I'm glad I did it. And if I was going to go home early, I'm glad it was first, because first of all, it's really fucking funny. And second of all, if I had gone home early, the honestly, Ryan, the most stressful part of the whole thing, up to and including getting our asses kicked in a challenge, was the hour before it aired, because I don't know what they're using. They're filming us for days on end. You don't know what you're going to see. And that feeling for weeks on end, I don't know, with this election on top of it, I didn't really fully process how hard that was going to be. So if I was going to go home early, I'm not sad it was first, but God damn it was fun. And I wanted to stay longer.
Dude, there's a video you guys have to check out of him watching everybody watch him getting, kicked off first. And it is so, I don't know why. And I don't DM a lot of people, but I actually DM'd you that night. And I was like, I am so damn bummed that you were out of here, because I was so excited to watch you all season. But regardless, guys, votes, we're doing all the stuff. I'm going to put all the show notes. You'll hear it in the intro and the outro. John, I wish I could have talked to you under calmer times, because you are one of my heroes. Thank you so much for doing what you do. You really are a calming force in crazy times for me personally. I appreciate it.
Thanks for saying that, Ryan. And yes, you know what? Kamala Harris wins. Let's talk about television.
Yes. Okay. Guys, we are double getting out the vote this weekend. Okay. John Lovett, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Ryan.